A warm welcome to all teachers, parents, students and everybody interested in learning and education, including politicians and education officials. My name is Andy Reid and I'm a retired teacher, in-service teacher trainer, technical translator, entertainer, musician and singer. Here's a selection of the learning approaches and concrete resources which I have used. I could only find boring approaches and exercises for the introduction of algebra at the secondary level. I needed something better, and this is my alternative. That's different shapes, each of which has got a specified weight, and therefore they can be compared and mixed on a balance. This gives lots of equations and opportunities to change them and analyse them. It also introduces proportion, and we can always check it by using the balance. To guarantee the variable nature of the unknowns, I have lots of very small unit weights, and therefore each shape can be weighed with these unit weights, and it has lots of values. Fundamental maths is often concerned with quantity, number and arithmetic. I took Dean's apparatus to begin with. That's the 1, that's the 10, there's the 100 and there's the 1000, and I've also used Maria Montessori's bead apparatus, which is similar. But I have quite a few reservations about it, and so I looked for something better. Here's my first alternative, that's pressed wood, which has a hole in it, and that's my 1, there's my strip 10, and underneath there's a square 100, and with the use of marbles this was pretty good. But when I went to PVC I achieved a lot better results. There's my unit, or 1, there's my 10, there's my 100, and with it the children can cover all quantity, almost unlimited counting, lots of patterns and also arithmetic. For instance, a child can count 23 times 17 without being able to write. It's quite easy with the materials themselves. There are lots of activities to go with these materials, the mathy mats and the marbles, and also I use these dice. Lots of dice. I'm a fan of using the dice, and the children adore using them. There's lots of different spotty dice, there's quite a lot of number dice, and of course there's the base 10 dice. Wonderful. For the kindergarten I designed and produced this square 100 for the use with tennis balls, and also this strip 10. The children then have an opportunity to deal with quantity and counting without having to read or interpret symbols and without having to write. I taught for a short time in Uganda, and I tried using the bottle top as my unit, or 1, and then there's the 10s and there's the 100s. It offers lots of opportunities, but not quite as many as the PVC variation, the mathy mats. Here are 2 examples of challenges for the children where they have to analyse that and produce lots of solutions. Cuisinart rods offer opportunities for challenges, and analysis are fine. And why not all the shapes in maths? Here's a 3 centimetre cube, and here are quite a number of shapes based on that, and that's wonderful for an introduction to nets, particularly even the complicated ones, which with suitable paper the children love doing. Normal shapes as well, and shapes that are available anywhere: Lego bricks, triangles, squares, cubes and click cubes. I also use lots of grids printed on A4 paper. Based on the square I have 0,5, 1, 2, 3 and 4 centimetre. Wonderful for lots and lots of challenges and for use with the shapes. And I've also got spotted grids, including the isometric variation. Here are 3 teacher handbooks which I've written. one for number, pattern, quantity and counting, one for arithmetic and one for stochastic and probability and some graph work. It uses exclusively the mathematics, the marbles and the dice. You don't need any more than that. I am very happy to have been involved in foundation language, and I soon discovered that I needed lots and lots of concrete materials, including costumes and puppets, and I want to emphasise that they were intended for the children and not for me. They help to stimulate speaking, describing, discussing, role play and giving a talk with the aid of the storyboard, and I have a few examples here of how they did that, including when they can't even write. I am dissatisfied with all the approaches to learning to read that I have seen, and so I developed my own learning approach, which takes less than 10 minutes for the children to understand how it goes, and then they can teach themselves to read without any help, though help is welcome if they can get it. And I have produced 2 books with CDs as the basis for this approach, but the children can use any other material. I taught for a short time in Uganda and I was able to try this approach there, and it came on very well. I've written a teacher manual called Comprehensive Toolkit, in which I give lots and lots of speaking activities. I've also written a dancing manual with music CD and a manual on singing songs and dancing. I'm a great fan of both songs and dancing. I'd like to mention assessment. As a teacher, I've been subjected to lots of systems of assessment and evaluation that have been not only time consuming but very frustrating. So I thought it necessary to design my own, and this is a comprehensive system to assess learning progress which requires almost no time and is easily understandable by children, parents and teachers. And last of all, I've also developed a children's office system which they find easy to learn, and they learn to organise all their work. This video details my fundamentals, and after it I'm following it with 50 or so videos which show how to achieve it in practice. Go to my website dotalkthink.de, and there you'll find links to all my videos, lots of information and suitable downloads. And why not subscribe so that you get the latest news of what videos I have released. In this video I will review the learning approach of the preschool child, list my view of the neuro-didactic recommendations for effective learning, recommend interactivity and the 3 visible learning levels, cover instruction weaknesses and have a look at instruction, syllabus and textbook illusions. And at the end I will propose a way forward. Babies and small children are very clever people. They learn intuitively and successfully. They accept the world of apparent chaos and observe it, investigate it, experiment with it, and establish their own order and their own understanding. This is similar to scientific research. What they don't need is instruction or spoon-fed pieces of information. And they don't need to learn a learn system in order to learn, though that's what we do in school when teaching reading using the phonics system. Emotion and interest play a very large part, and so the learned content varies from child to child. Take the example of the spoken word egg. A child who hates egg or loves egg will learn that word very quickly, A child who is indifferent to egg will learn it sometime later. So to summarise, children have curiosity, involvement, interest, and they are very active in their learning. They learn naturally and individually. I recommend that we continue this in the school and at home. Neuro-didactic research has come a long way in trying to define what constitutes effective learning. For my own benefit, I have tried to put together a summary of their current recommendations, and I offer this summary as a benefit for you. In all this, the teacher is a guide. So the fundamental challenge is surely, how can we continue the learning approach of the preschool child and fulfil the neuro-didactic recommendations? In my opinion, we must ensure interactivity. That's doing, talking and thinking. If we organise the doing correctly, then there will be lots of talking and thinking, and we will be very close to ensuring full emotional involvement. This is not an option to be put in front of the children now and again. I think this is the fundamental approach we need for effective learning. Here is a diagram showing the links between doing, talking and thinking. There seems to be almost unanimous agreement that there are 3 learning levels. Unfortunately, the definitions or descriptions of those learning levels change from person to person. So what I've tried to do here is list the terms that are used most often. However, I find quite a few of these approaches rather confusing, in particular describing level 3 as abstract or language. My approach, which I think is clear for me, is to go for visible learning levels. That's concrete, illustrative and written. And these can be considered to be on a sort of ladder, with concrete as the basis and then rising to illustrative and rising again to written. This is an abstraction process which is controlled by the child. During my teacher training at university, I learned to be an instructor, but I soon became fairly dissatisfied with this at school. I discovered that instruction is a one-way route, and here's a diagram where I try to show this. The children remain passive and the teacher talks. During this passive time, the children are not doing and therefore not learning very much. There's an absence of interactivity. Sometimes there's a question and answer session. This is between the teacher and 1 or 2 pupils. If a pupil is active during this session for 5% of the time, then of course they are inactive for 95% of the time. There have been several attempts to try and improve instruction. One of them, for instance, is cooperative learning instruction strategies. But these are mostly add-ons. And by the way, cooperative learning instruction strategies is just a flashy term for group work. The rate of learning, or the rate of ability development, differs from person to person. So the ability span for any given age group will be pretty large. The Cockcroft report established that for a mathematical topic for 11-year-olds, the ability span was about 7 years. But in practice, this is often ignored. The class instruction illusion must be one of the widest used approaches to learning, and in it a group of 30 children have the same learning goals and the same learning process. An impossibility. But the syllabus illusion is on the same lines. This is where local authorities present similar learning goals for the same age group. This is of course also impossible, and to try and get themselves out of this hole, some local authorities or governments have added should reach or ought to reach. But this makes a whole mockery of their basis. Some of them run into including in their syllabuses a whole lot of waffle. That's what I've found as I've had to read lots of syllabuses during my time as in-service teacher trainer. The textbook illusion is somewhat similar. It provides a series of exercises for the same learning goals and with the same learning process. There's very rarely concrete work, and interactivity is at a minimum. I have come to the conclusion then that effective learning should fundamentally include the following, and also fundamentally exclude these aspects. My response to this was to realise that I needed lots of impulse activities. That's an activity designed for pairs or threes, which offers many opportunities for individual and group learning. The sort of activities I looked for and found were games, puzzles, searches, challenges and investigations. An ideal introduction to an impulse activity takes under 5 minutes and stimulates lots and lots of pupil activity, maybe several hours, and repeatedly over a long time period. The abstraction level, of course, is always determined by the children. And I have decided to call my approach investigative, intuitive learning on a concrete basis. This video represents the basis as I see it for effective learning. I will follow this up with 50 or so videos showing how to realise this in practice. It's important to start young. And so first of all, there will be foundation mathematics and foundation language, and very important, the key approaches. After that, I will be building on the foundations, and also very important, showing how to adopt this approach in practice. Have a look at my website for the current links and information. I hope this video has been clear and easy to understand for you, and maybe you had feelings of, I could have thought of that, or it's quite obvious. I would be pleased if that's so. Sometimes in the past I've had the objection similar to the statement, well Andy, it's all very well, but I only do this playing around with my children if I have time. This is a completely false concept. Our aim should be to promote effective learning or get as near to it as possible, and this is not dependent upon the time available. Any deviation from effective learning creates less learning. If you're planning on adopting some or all of the ideas I offer in this video and the other 50 or so to follow, then here's just a tip. it will take you some time to adjust away from your current approach. It was great fun for me developing these approaches, and I hope it'll be great fun for you. I wish you every success.